Hey, I'm Orlando Jones, and I just want you to know that the Moana Nui podcast will be starting soon. Stay tuned, yo.
I'm Veronica Taylor, and from myself and Ash Ketchum, I just want to say, Moana Nui, I choose you!
Aloha mai kako, everyone. Welcome to the Moana Nui podcast. Today is August 31st, and I can't believe that we are already moving into September, ending of summer soon, and shifting into the fall. But here we are, and I guess we're just going to welcome it with open arms because that's how we do. Again, my name is Moana McAdams. I am the founder of the Moana Nui podcast. Tonight, our topic is our mental health series, Rain Talks. And the topic that we are discussing tonight is collective trauma. So I will say up front that this is going to be a tough and maybe a dark conversation, but it's a very honest conversation. And as most people know, here on the Moana Nui podcast, we do not shy away from difficult topics. It's important for us to open those up and have these conversations so that we can help to move through these challenging stages of life and also help other people move through it as well. So, but before we get started, I want to acknowledge our sponsors, Papa'ola Lokahi, who are the premier Hawaiian organization uplifting the health and mental well-being of Native Hawaiian people, or Kanaka Maoli. So let me just play the video.
Aloha, I'm Kim Ku'ule Burney with Papa'ola.
Sorry, hold on. Technical difficulty. There we go.
Aloha, I'm Kim Ku'ule Burney with Papa'ola Lokahi. Together with the Native Hawaiian Health Scholarship Program and 5 Native Hawaiian healthcare systems that serve 7 islands, our sole objective is to raise the health status of Native Hawaiians and our families. For more information, you can find it on our website at papa'olalokahi.org. Eola mau.
So mahalo to Sherry Daniels and our ohana over at Papa'ola Lokahi for their sponsorship. So tonight we talk about collective trauma, and we are joined by Shay Rain, who is our lovely leader and host of this monthly segment. And I'm happy to have her on tonight, as always. But I also want to introduce a special guest tonight, my sis, and a fellow Kanaka Maoli here in the diaspora, Jazzy Vanover. And she is someone who's actually joining our Moana Nui podcast team. Tonight she is guest co-hosting with Rain, but she's also going to be is our creative director, and she will be doing a lot of our social media and helping us to elevate our platform and get our audiences, the messages out to our audiences and help to build us up. So I want to welcome her to the show as well. So let me bring these wonderful ladies on, Shay and Jazzy. Aloha, ladies. How are we doing tonight? Oops, we're muted, Shay.
There we go. Hi and aloha. I'm doing all right. Thanks for asking. And of course, I was muted for that first few seconds because being absent-minded is a thing that happens. But always glad to be here.
Awesome.
I myself am doing well. Very excited and very grateful to be here.
Great. Alrighty, so collective trauma. This is trauma is a word that gets thrown around a lot. but it's an important topic, especially when we talk about intergenerational trauma. But I'm gonna hand it over to Shay to kind of kick us off, and we're just gonna work through this topic today.
Yeah, we're unmuting. There we go. So I want to start off basically just with a simple Google definition of collective trauma. Um, oh, trigger warning, um, all of those other trendy things that you're supposed to say when you might be saying something that could be sensitive for others. It's super important that I give the definition and some examples just for the purpose of making sure that folks are understanding. So trigger warning. But yes, so collective trauma is the psychological distress that a group, usually an entire culture, community, or another large group of people experience in response to a shared trauma. So that can be, for example, on a global level, COVID-19. We all had a collective traumatic experience. And technically speaking, we're all still going through a collectively traumatic experience as it relates to COVID. And all of its variations, right? There's also the generational trauma that can be associated with the genocides, plural, in Africa, the genocide of during the Holocaust, slavery, Native American and other America's peoples, or actually the Native peoples of pretty much everywhere. Let's be super real about that. Genocide is a thing that is not just collectively traumatic for the time that it actually happened in, but it also contributes to generational traumas. And so it's important to recognize that there's so many things that come from something that may seem to have happened forever ago, but it still affects the people today. So when we're talking about, let's say, the native peoples of the Americas, things like rampant drug addiction and alcoholism and things like that, those are byproducts of generational trauma. When we're talking about poverty in inner city and Black and Hispanic neighborhoods, that's a byproduct of generational trauma. When we're talking about being quiet about things like rape, sexual harassment, child molestation, so important to recognize that and to remember that about what's happening right now, or not just what's happening about in recent history, but also what has been happening in all of human history, and how it is that all of humanity tends to treat each other in the most deplorable ways that we can come up with. We tend to be really creative with how we mistreat each other. And so it's really important to recognize that collective trauma is something that we are all, to a certain extent, always dealing with, whether it's our own or someone else's. And to that point, talking about something that's happening right now, if you saw this week's summary, synopsis, intro, not even sure what to call it, blurb that we keep, that we include with our links and the advertisement type thing that we do, we're gonna talk specifically about what's happening right now since the wildfires in Maui. So what's happening and has been happening, and these ladies, being Native Hawaiians that they are, can definitely speak more to how it affects them now. What's really important to recognize is that there is an immediately important to recognize trauma or traumatic experience happening collectively for the people of Hawaii. And that has also contributed to a resurgence of feelings and hurts and shared experiences and all of these things that have been brought back up and to the forefront of the experience of the people of Hawaii, of Maui. And it's really important to recognize how we, as those of us who aren't from there, can contribute to their trauma and can contribute to helping them not have to re-experience some of that trauma. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So really, today I'm mostly here for the science. Out of respect for the culture and the people of Hawaii, I am deferring to these wonderful, beautiful ladies here for their lived experience and intelligence to explain why we need to be doing better. Jazzy, Moana, you guys can chime in.
I'll go ahead and chime in. So, just as you said, there is a lot going on in Maui, especially in the wildfire areas like Kula and Lāhainā. And I was actually watching a live today from a local newscaster. She's a forecaster, and she was talking about how, the really strong winds actually brought back almost like PTSD because of it sounded like the winds the night that they had to evacuate. And so she really sat there and she was just like, I feel for those who actually didn't have a chance to evacuate. And, because of that, the collective trauma is that this was an entire town. This wasn't just a street. This wasn't just a block. This was an entire town, a very historical, beautiful town that was built upon generations and generations of Kanaka Maoli that either fought to keep their land because, economy just kept slipping. This is multi-generational homes. I know that back home, it's almost rare to see just mom, dad, and kids living in households. A lot of the times you have grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, siblings, and then sometimes the adult kids with their babies. So you have grandparents, parents, siblings, and grandbabies all living in the same home. So, this is something that these houses were there from the 1800s or, was passed down and kept in the family. And, just knowing that even within 48 hours, they were getting phone calls for offers to buy their now no longer home land was something that I know that myself, Moana, even those of us who are here on the continent was just like, excuse me? Are you like, why have compassion? And that's something that is, like you said, very generational, and it's collectively generational, and it's also individually through the families because everyone had their ohana experience something different, whether they came from other countries. Like I have a background with family that came from the Philippines, so that's how I was merged into Kanaka Maoli as well. So just knowing how a lot of the times it was always, oh, well, you don't have enough, so let's just pay you and then you can figure out where you're going to go then. It's just, it happens all the time. More and more are being bought out. And then, it also goes into the whole part of it was 2 days later. As I would say to other people whenever I would vent to my friends and close loved ones, it was very much like, the embers weren't even done before the people who lost everything were getting phone calls and being bombarded. And, they were still in a state of shock. They were still living through this trauma and this event and this absolute, as a lot of them called it, apocalyptic situation. And people were just like so desensitized, just very just, okay, well, we'll give you this money and then you can figure it out. When it wasn't money that was on their mind. It wasn't, when can I rebuild my home? At that point, it was, where's my neighbor? Where's my loved one? Where's my cousin? Where's my grandma? Where's my dog? Where's my family? And stuff like that. So those of us here, it made us feel almost helpless because we wanted to just hop on planes and get our boots on the ground and go help. At the same time, we also understand, because we grew up there, that when stuff like this happens, it's best to acknowledge the need and not our want of making sure we intervene physically. It's about it reassuring that you're here, we love you, you're supported, we're your voice. If you can't speak, we're your shoulder to cry on, whatever you need. But we don't.
Yeah, I think what Jazzy said is very important in terms of the multi-generational families and the land that has been um, what's the word. See, it's so hard to indigenous people don't look at land ownership. You can't own land. You are a steward of land. And it is your job to take care of it, because if you don't take care of it, it won't take care of you. And so that is, yeah, it's hard to talk about ownership and things like that. But yeah, I'm trying to not get upset.
Let me help you, because I understand how hard this can be for you, and so I want to just jump in to give you that reprieve. When it comes to this piece, what we're talking about isn't like physical ownership or material ownership. This is emotional ownership. So what you're looking at right now, you're looking at a state of not, oh my gosh, I lost my house and the land upon which it was built. It's, I lost the memories. I can't access the proof that these things happened. I can no longer see the wall that I stubbed my toe on when I was 15. That wall is gone now. I can no longer experience walking through the door to the kitchen or the passageway to the kitchen and see my grandma or my mom cooking dinner, because the kitchen is gone now. It's not the material thing, it's the experience and the emotion that's attached to it. You don't emotionally, or rather, the importance isn't necessarily on the physical thing as much as it is the experience that you had with it. And so when we're talking about being able to cope and deal with someone coming and trying to offer you, or your family or your loved one or your neighbor or that person who you just so happen to see every day on your way to school, you know, you might not know their name, but they're still a part of your experience. When you find out that someone was offering them some monetary amount for a memory or an experience or a part of their life they will never get back, that's the pain that we're talking about. It's not, oh my gosh, this physical thing that I no longer have. It's this entire portion of my identity that I no longer have access to, that you are now trying to put a price tag on as if I can be bought. That's the insensitivity that we're talking about, where people have decided that everything is a commodity that can be bought, sold, or traded. That's not how this works. That's never been how this has worked. That's actually one of the bigger reasons why it is that wars were literally fought over this whole concept, is because what was being told is you're fighting over land, but what you're actually fighting over is safety. What you're actually fighting over is the safety and unity of your community. What you're actually fighting over is your ability to say, I have a right to live and be here, regardless of whether you believe that your monetary or gold or whatever thing it is that you think is more valuable than my life, than my space, than my autonomy is. I'm willing to fight and die for that because that is valuable beyond measure. And the insensitivity that's being shown and that has been shown is what exactly it is that we're talking about, because it's a double-edged sword, right? It's, I have this thing or these things that have that are priceless to me. And also I have this need for these things that definitely have a price. Because I will need to be able to get a roof over my head. I will need to be able to make sure I can get my kids to school. And these things cost money. However, these other things that are priceless to me are also a part of this equation that we're not actually getting a chance to deal with, because you're focused on these other things as if life should just go on without me having the opportunity to deal with this part. Did I get that right?
Spot on for me.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's definitely true. And I think the added layer that most people won't also realize is that Hawaii was and is a kingdom. And where Lahaina is right now is the seat of that kingdom. It was the original spot where our islands were united under one ruler, chief, essentially. And so, in addition to like the modern day aspects of what people see now, there's history and stories and important places, the water sources. Like that's the other parts that um, people who don't understand our history, like this wasn't a natural disaster. This was intentional water theft for 200 years, like almost 200 years of um, intentional theft, displacement of the people. Like, if you look at where Lahaina is and the west side of the island, like it used to be a very lush wetland. It fed the people. It was like Hawaiians were doing freaking self-sustainability before this shit was even a buzz term. Um, our ahupua'a systems were set up to maximize our resources. And that is resources that you did not have to pay for. The water from the sky, just the genius of our people to like create these land systems that allowed us to live off the land, feed ourselves, and do it in such a regenerative way that we did not need external people to help us. We were and are quite a strong genius people before all of this happened. But with this foreign influence and foreign greed and persistent exploitation, this is where we find ourselves. And so the water gets redirected to what was the sugar plantations at the time, even the pineapple, plantations. And this is such a layered issue. I'm like, I could go off in so many tangents. But it was diverted. And now in today it's diverted into the hotels and the condos and the tourism. And so when we start to talk about that topic, it's very easy to get a visceral response about that, because we're essentially being disadvantaged as Native Hawaiians, Kanaka Maoli, for the interest of American capitalism, American greed, commercialism, all of that stuff. And I know it, like, I'm not saying we're going back into the Stone Age. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is that these resources, water, all of those things need to be in the control of the indigenous people, because we know how to care for it in a manner that is sustainable for everybody. Because what you're seeing right now in Hawaii, that's the aloha spirit. Like, we don't wait for people to come. We take care of ourselves. I'm not saying we do need the donations. Please don't take me wrong. Like, please send the donations. Our families need it. But what I'm saying is that, like, we're a resilient people. It is that strength that we have, that we've had and we've always had, and our ability to make do with whatever it is that we have. That does not mean though that you can come in and take because we're gonna figure it out. That's not it at all. So I don't want that message to be taken either. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that it's just it's another chapter. Like you said, we're saying at the beginning, it's like picking the scab, right, of this never-ending wound of foreign exploitation, and fighting that the tourism kind of lens. Like, it has to be, I don't view it as one or the other, although I would probably lean towards no tourism myself. But I also have family on the island whose business is being impacted by tourism, right? Like, not by tourism, but by the lack of tourism for people who's not coming because we're telling them to stay away. But I think we need to be very intentional about holding tourists and visitors accountable for when they come here, that there needs to be forms of give back. We also need to be holding these businesses accountable for if they're going to be making this money off of our land and our spaces, our water, all of this. They need to be investing back into the community, and that does not happen. That's the issue, and that's why we have such strong opinions about this topic, because it's take, and there is no reciprocity. That's the issue. And when you see, like, I think it was like the day after the fires. I remember one of the first videos I saw on Instagram is the town's on fire still. There's smoke still in the air. There's searches going on in the water. And here comes this fucking tourist boat with people snorkeling like it's just another fucking day in paradise. Like, that's how fucking insensitive and ignorant can you be? Will you look around just for a little bit? Like, that's the kind of stuff where it makes me feel like, no, we don't need tourism, because a lot of them come in with the entitlement mentality, which is very non-Kanaka. And then to hear, especially living on the continent and living and working amongst people who do not look like me, it's just the entitlement, it's all very centered on them. It's all very centered on them. And it's just like, oh yeah, I was there, it's beautiful, and la 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 la. Okay. It's beautiful because there's a native people there who are maintaining that place, caring for that place. And not for you to just come and leave your opala or your rubbish behind. Like, yep, came here, did it, and I'm off to my next adventure now. I got my Instagram photos, I got my reels, right? Like, all of that kind of stuff. But I'm just gonna leave it behind. Okay, I talked a lot. Let me be quiet.
So I'm gonna snowball off of you and definitely touch on those same things. I obviously don't sound as Kanaka Maoli as I used to because I've lived in Indiana for over a decade at this point. Um, but when I first came here, I got a lot of, "Oh, where are you from? You're just so exotic." And, whenever I told them, "Oh, I was born and raised in Hawaii," it's, "Oh, well, do you know how to hula? Can you hula for me?" And I'm just like, hula isn't something that even our own culture, like, is it beautiful? Is it sexy? Does a lot of people look at our kane, our men, and be like, "Ooh, yes, absolutely." But at the same time, we know as our culture, it was our books said and spoken in Olelo Hawaii in Hawaiian language and with our hands, with the motions of our hips. Hula isn't just a performance to be beautiful and commercialized and whatnot. I mean, Mary Monarch, the reason why Mary Monarch is so big for a lot of us, especially those of us who are not at home. And, Moana, I know that you are connected to a halau and, for hula dancing and whatnot. Well, that is so important to us because at one point or another, the visitors that came and discovered the islands decided to say that no, that's not allowed anymore. Women, come cover your breast. Stop dancing hula. Stop speaking that language. You need to speak our language because we think you're infiltrating. We think you're doing secrets. And it was stripped. It was completely stripped from us. And it was even to the point you know, where I believe a lot of us are like, why are you silencing our voice? Why are you telling us to stop being organically us, authentic to our lineage and our culture? And so through their mana, their power, and their fighting and their diligence, Olelo Hawaii became legal again, and hula became something that was allowed to be. Well, little did Kanaka back then realize that they were commercializing it at that point. That's the reason why they're like, you know what? We'll let it happen, but we're gonna make it this way. We're gonna make it like this. You know, um, just like an earlier conversation that we've had, a lot of people believe that they hop off a plane, they get this beautiful lake. Oh, it smells so pretty. Oh, look at this beautiful land. Not realizing that they're still going into someone's home or hale. It's our house. We don't see the island as, okay, yeah, that's the island and my house is over here. When we get off of those planes, when we are flying over those islands and we can see them out of the window, we're home. Even though we're still in the airplane above the ocean, we're home. That all of it. It doesn't matter what island we're from. It doesn't matter what town on what island we're from. That is home. All those beautiful little rocks in the sea is home. And to know that so many people keep visiting, and I can also say that this doesn't just pertain to Hawaii, but we're focusing on that. But whenever you vacation anywhere outside of what you are normally used to, you're in someone's home. Even if you drive 2 hours down the road to go to that community, you're in their neck of the woods, you're their home. Respect it. And that's something that Moana was touching on, is just there's a lot of people from all over the world that come to Hawaii and they're just like, it's exotic, it's beautiful, we get these pretty leis. They don't take into consideration that the leis were picked with intention of thanking the plant for giving the flowers. They were threaded by hand with the intention of making sure that it is preserved to show aloha and love as they were draped over the necks. There's a reason why leis are given. Aloha is about breath, it's about life. So when you are welcomed off the plane with that lei, it's an extension of our love and compassion. So when they're sitting here and they're just like, oh yeah, 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 whatever, I'm just gonna go over here and do this, and it's just like, you want respect from us because you're here on vacation or you're here for a trip, but you're in our house. We are welcoming you into our house, and the best way I can explain it, it would be like, you don't just go to somebody's house party and just trash it because you freaking feel like it. You go to their house party, you try to be presentable, you try to have respect and manners and, clean up after yourself. You don't just leave your plate of food that you maybe didn't finish and just toss it on the ground. So why do that in someone else's native lands. And, like Moana said, the self-sustainment of the lands were just absolutely beautiful. I remember in elementary school. So growing up on Oahu, I went to multiple different schools on the island, but in the elementary school years, I mainly went to Kamaili, which is in Waianae, which is the west side, very dry land. And brush fires were something that we experienced quite a bit, unfortunately. But I remember whenever it would rain, really just like magical rain, the waterfalls, and then the waterfalls would go into their own little channels. And that's what the water channels would go. It would go to patches of kalo or taro. It would go to the patches of all the food sources. Not to mention our ancestors figured out a way to also feed into shrimp farms. Like little cutouts like oh my gosh, my brain just went like lagoons. There you go. That's the word I'm looking for, lagoons. But they were just square lagoons, and that's where they had everything. And it's like they placed it. What needed more water was closer to the mountain. What needed less was coming down towards the shore. And then the coconut trees were harvested. Why do you think they know how to climb coconut trees? Well, because it's in our blood. We had to figure it out. We wanted the fruit. We got to go get the fruit. Can I just wait for the wind to knock it over? Because by then it's probably gross. So gotta go and climb it, And then they had fishing. I mean, I really do feel, and this is the Disney girl in me, but I really do feel like the movie Moana really did depict Polynesian culture the organic, beautiful way that it was meant to be, in the right way. And, when all of that respect is given, it's more than just paradise. It's more than just, ooh, that's this. Hearing how the scuba diving was going on, read the room. Read the room. Yes, there's a lot of businesses that thrive on tourism because that's how they make their income, is because that's majority of the people that's on the island. It's unfortunately not more locals than visitors. It's more visitors than locals. So, yeah, that's business. And it's hard when the entitlement comes in of, well, I'm here to visit, show us a good time. Why are you guys mean? Well, because time and time and time again, it doesn't matter how many chances we've given, how many chances and times of compassion and kindness, it's always taken advantage of. And it definitely leaves marks. We see it as children. We've heard our kupuna, our grandparents talk about it. We've heard the elder neighbors talk about it. Hawaii is one of those places that you can really feel at home no matter where you're from, because it's so loving. Like, I literally feel like Hawaii is a place where if you want to find yourself, you're going to find yourself there, because Hawaii is just going to welcome you as you are, authentic. No fake face. Nobody cares your status. They don't care if you own a business or you freaking barely making a bus pass, like nobody cares. But you have to show that love back. You have to be able to have that compassion and know where the line is drawn between, I want to experience this versus I better experience this because that's what the brochure said. And now I feel like I'm rambling. So who wants to chime in?
It's okay. Perspective is, of course, so welcome. But I think this is a good place to also start talking about ways, because we spent a good amount of time on ways that people are, quite, just to be as blunt and transparent as possible, where they got y'all fucked up, is, we've got that part. So we hopefully understand. Actually, okay, I'll take this one moment to make sure that I put the period on the point, right? Um, in case you don't really get what's being said, the TLDR of it all is when you are a tourist, you come in like, entertain me. Right now, what you are looking at is the people being like the gladiator in 300, being like, are you not entertained? And in this particular case, what they are saying is, our island is on fire. It is being televised. You can see what we are going through. Is this not entertaining enough for you? If it is not, then GTFO. That is where we are right now. If you are not already sufficiently entertained by what is available to you right now, then you do not have the open welcome to be there at this time. If you are not there to contribute positively, then you should not be there. That is the point that is being made right now. So the question then comes, how can you contribute positively to the experience of the Native people of Hawaii? I'm sorry, Hawaii.
I love it. So I would say there are so many community organizations that are on the ground helping the families, and despite what national media is saying, ground truth, as anybody should know by now, ground truth is not what the media is putting out. So I definitely want to highlight one organization that I'm working with directly. This is someone that you can trust, who is doing important work on the island, and they're actually based in Molokai, which is right across the channel from Maui. Molokai is considered like a sister island to Maui. If you know our stories, there's the two islands used to be sisters, and there's good sister rivalry. But at the end of the day, like it's one of those things, right? Like nobody can mess with my sibling except me. Like we can argue, but don't you come over here because I'm gonna get you. So so Ho'aka Mana is a wonderful organization right now that is working with the Maui community, both the families that were affected as well as the first responders who are caring for them, because the families need help, but also the people who are helping them through a difficult time also have to figure out like where to put that too. And a lot of the volunteers are affected too. Like I have a friend who her house was like, I think one block, maybe a block and a half from Front Street, and her house was burnt down to the ground. They just built it. It was a freaking brand new house. They lost everything, but they're right in there. Like they're in the community and they're helping other people. So like this is the kind of things that we mean when we're saying like, if you want to come, then please help organizations that are on the ground right now, make donations, offer something helpful to these people, share the messages out on social media. In fact, share this right now. Like there's just so many ways. It doesn't have to be monetary, it doesn't have to be physical things. Raise awareness. We all know these algorithms are trash. Like this is why we need to share these things, comment, engage in the conversations, so that these people don't get lost, because our community is going to be in need for a very long time. I mean, we've been in need already for hundreds of years. We said that, but this particular effort, this is going to be multi-year, 2 years plus. Like this is like, I don't know when they're going to rebuild this town, and Lord have mercy. I hope that, and I will fight for this, that the land goes back to the people and it does not go to these greedy businesses who really essentially want to wipe out the town and put a whole freaking new communities, condos, and stuff again that is going to be.
I just want to interject to make it a little bit more specific. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because we want you to support local businesses. We do not want to sell to the big corporations.
Correct.
Just to give a slight differentiation in wording, because supporting business is not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Supporting corporations in this particular situation might not be helpful to the people of the island. So just throwing that in there just for a linguistic
Thank you, sis.
dig. Just sticking it in there. Sorry.
Yes. Um, so be intentional about the businesses that you are supporting too, right? Like look for the mom and pops, look for the smaller family owned businesses, because those businesses, I know a lady, Empanada Lady. So if you're on island, please go and support her restaurant. I believe she's in Kahului. But she is on every Saturday. She, out of her own resources, she's not getting any funding right now. We're trying to get her funding. But right now she is making Caribbean food. Essentially, she cooks from 5 o'clock in the morning till 1 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then her and the people who are helping her, they take the food an hour away into Lāhainā, and they're feeding the first responders. Like, and this is happening like on the regular, all out of her heart, right? So how can we help these types of businesses? My cousin who lives in Wailuku, while her home is not impacted by the fire, her business is, because her business is event planning and weddings. And so obviously a lot of tourists come for those purposes. So while her home is still intact, her business is not. And she is Native Hawaiian. So if you need event planning or wedding services, she does amazing work. And her website is Ku'uipo Weddings. And I'll put that in the comments too. But if you or if you know someone who is going to Maui, please don't go to Lahaina. Go to the other parts of the island. But who needs these types of services? Like, please look out for people like her. Just be like, it's not hard, like you can tell. Don't go to chains. I wouldn't go to chains. Go to those, like, mom and pops, the holes in the walls, the ones that, like that's where the good stuff is no matter where you are, really. It don't have to look good on the outside. The thing is, does it taste good? Like those are the things. And if you feel so inclined, volunteer. Like, don't go inside Lahaina, but there are a lot of hubs, community hubs with volunteers outside of Lahaina that are serving Lahaina. But go and spend some time there, volunteer, learn from the people, and go with humility. Don't go in there with entitlement. Don't do that. But go in there very humble and ask. If you ask with the right energy and the right intention, they will welcome you, and they'll be like, yeah, sure, we could use some help. So yeah, anyway, back to this organization. I'm sorry, guys. I get so passionate about this topic that I go all over the place. But so Huakamana, working with the hubs, working to provide grief and crisis counseling. We're working to put together special care bags for families who were impacted, just to show them that like we care. We're also trying to, if you feel the move to like want to adopt a family and maybe like do tailored needs, like I want to take care of this family, let me get them some clothes, we can put you in connection with families that way too, however you feel like it. There's a lot of kids that were impacted, and it's hard enough for adults to feel this trauma. My goodness, what it's doing to the kids right now. So I have a special place in my heart for the kids because, I wasn't super young when I, had our own disaster on my island. I was 10, but I was still young enough. Like that stuff is very pivotal in the way I am now. But yeah, like we want the focus to be on these families and helping them to overcome this. And it's so hard when you're grieving to even want to do paperwork. Like just think about when you lose a loved one, just one loved one, how hard it is to navigate that space. Imagine losing all the neighbors in your town, like just multiple people at once. Like there's some dark stuff that's happening already. Like they're not really talking about it in the news, but there are suicides happening already. And that's, those are the types of things that we want to help people to bring them out of that darkness. Like it's hard right now, but like we're here, reach out, ask for help. I think that's the other side of Hawaiian culture too, because we're so aloha. We have a hard time asking for help. And so the other part of me, like here being on the continent, is trying to be an advocate for those who I know need the help, but will not directly ask for it. They just won't. And it's just, being Kanaka in the diaspora, you have your foot in two different worlds and you have to try and translate for both sides, really, so that those gaps can be bridged and people can try to understand both worlds. So, yeah. Go ahead. I know Jazzy wants to say something for sure.
So I'm right there with you. That's what I got into peer counseling after going through my own traumas and whatnot. And that's the focus of why I absolutely love that you introduced me to work with Hoakamana, because they do focus a lot on, as they say, the EMS system, the emotional, mental, and spiritual wellness of the person, the soul, making sure that, they are valid, they are heard, they are able to heal, transcend, and be able to come out of it's the situation, the trauma, whatever phrases will fit the narrative on it. But it is literally a program, a beautiful nonprofit that is there to help every single person, every single soul on every single level. These care packages that we're organizing to get together, it is not just a throw all. It is very specific to make sure that we include families together, that we have something for the adults, something for the keiki, for the kids, something that reminds them we have our culture, and art is something that we are very familiar with because we are living art, if you will. And just knowing that these souls, these beautiful souls that are impacted right now, are not being forgotten. After hearing what Moana just said, that's a sign, that is a signal, that is a flashing light of, we need more help. We're struggling. There's something that needs to be met that's not being met. And like she said, us being up here, it's hard because like I said before, we just want to go, and we just want to be like, let me hug you, like, I got you, what do you need? Let's take the kids, or something. But at the same time, we're here, and so we do what we can here, like she said, bridging the gaps, allowing the voice from back home to be heard beyond the Pacific Ocean. Just knowing that they still have Kanaka Maoli, even if we're not there. I have a first cousin who organized a beautiful drive the Friday after the fires had started. And he was just like, I'm doing a drive. This is what we're going to send to them. And it's because he had family and prior coworkers and whatnot, that from his wife's side and stuff like that, that was living in Maui, not Lāhainā area, but close enough to where they had friends. And so they knew what kind of needs were immediately needed to be met. And so when we ask people, visit the islands, yes, support the local businesses. Also go there knowing that you are in a sacred place. Everything is sacred to us. We have a very similar mindset as the Indians did. Like Moana said, you take care of the land takes care of you. You're thankful, you go in with gratitude, with humble hearts, and always knowing that life is a cycle. It's not something that, as we call it, we can't be ta-da about it. We cannot just, you know, we can't do that, because what that does is it breaks us from understanding that life is precious, and life is precious in all forms, whether it be ocean, mountain, the beautiful souls of any form of being is precious. And that's something that I feel Moana and I really just want everyone to know when it comes to Kanaka Maoli, regardless of where we live now. It's about that. It's about knowing that everything's precious. And when we lose sight of that, that's when things resurface. So if anybody wants to support like she has up here, Hoakamana is a beautiful organization, and we are always welcoming more volunteers and donors. And like she said, you can hanai or adopt a family if you want to be more intimate about knowing where your donations are going and knowing where your energy and your transactions are. And, you know, for all you know, you might learn a little bit about the family and the culture, and really understanding that Hawaiian people, we don't hate foreigners. We are just very triggered and traumatized to the point where it's hard to trust. And so when we open up and you open up and you allow us to be authentic and we allow you to be authentic, that's where harmony thrives. And I feel like that's where the Aloha spirit truly just soaks everybody up. So I'm going to pass it back on to one of you guys.
Well, we are coming to the top of the hour. So I want to make sure that I bring the full circle kind of summary thing to make sure that it's understood that what we are experiencing is an ongoing traumatic experience. So we had the initial strike of the actual fires happening. And then we have the next phase of, or the next strike of the aftermath, which is seeing everything that was lost. And then we'll have the collection phase of trying to recollect everything that was lost, which isn't just the things. We're talking about coping with the losses of life. We're talking about the losses of memories. We're talking about the losses of identity. Because when it comes to some of these things and some of these places, as these ladies just described to you, this is a part of their cultural, social identity. This particular area is a huge element of how the entirety of the island, this is the seat of where historical stories, let me not say history started because that's super inaccurate, but this is the seat of their monarchy, this is the seat of their royalty, this is the seat of pride that was not exactly naturally taken away, that was decimated, that was actually initially stolen and appropriated by a people who did not have respect to begin with, and then, quote unquote, gave it back as if it was theirs to give in the first place. So when we're going into these places, when we are taking our vacations, or when we are showing up supposedly to help, we have to come in, and y'all know humility isn't exactly a part of my vocabulary. I literally wrote a whole piece saying fuck humility. So that's not a thing that I am necessarily fond of, but I do believe that this is one of those situations that you do need to come in with some cultural humility, knowing that you don't know, knowing that there's space for growth and understanding here that you probably don't even actually have the capacity for. And it's up to the people who are there, who you are there to serve. But let's be really specific. You are there to serve them. When you are there as a tourist, they are not there this time to serve you. You are there to serve them. You are there to contribute to their small businesses. You are there to contribute to their needs. And then they will share what they can with you. That is the purpose of this particular time. So, yes, you can still go and visit those areas that are safe for visiting, that are open for visiting. And as you do so, remember that you are there as earth servants to help them repair and recollect and get through these phases of trauma as safely, emotionally safely as possible. We are just stewards here. We're here to take care of this earth, and we're here to take care of each other. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that if you woke up this morning, it's a great time to get some therapy. Because if you don't understand what this message is about, then you probably haven't spoken to me before. Get yourself some therapy, get yourself some healing so that you can actually be a source of healing for others, because that's what this world needs today. Here
Yep.
we are. It's 8:03.
I couldn't have said it better. Alrighty. Well, ladies, we got through that conversation. I'm so sorry I had to drop some F-bombs, but I got to keep it real up in here. But yes, so I just want to say thank you to you both, because you bring such a unique and special lens to the conversation. I mean, Shay, you always do, because you know how much I love this segment, because I feel like more of us need to hear these words, and help us be accountable to ourselves, as well as the people around us. So mahalo for that. Jazzy, thank you so much for being my fellow Kanaka Tita, here on the show. And in addition to the show, but also being a part of our Moana Nui Ohana and helping us to explore and amplify all of the different perspectives and bringing our community together no matter where we are. So that's always a beautiful thing, and I'm really looking forward to what all of the value and the wonderful conversations that are to come, here specifically on Rain Talks, but also the broader Moana Nui platform and all of the people that we serve and our other teammates who help us to make this show the special place that it is. So mahalo. But before we go, real quick, let people know where they can find you online, with your socials, where can they, especially for you, Shay, where can people contact you to reach out for therapy services?
Rain O change pretty much everywhere. So Facebook, Instagram. I have to look over here at my notes. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and shucks, go back. Yes, I'm also on TikTok. There we go. So yes, Rain or Change, pretty much everywhere, is how you can find me. You can drop me a message, and of course, Moana and Dana are always happy to field your messages in case you have anything that you wanted to ask me, but didn't get to ask on air, I guess. And we usually say, when we're not quite as serious, that that you can basically message any more private issues that you want to discuss directly, and we can schedule a session. So yeah, but for the public stuff, yeah, drop me a message or write it on the wall.
Jazzy?
So I only have Facebook and Instagram. On Instagram, it's at jazzy_Vanover. And if you are trying to find me on Facebook, I do have a private account, but I do have a metaphysical spiritual page called Moonwater Mermaid. If that's something that you want to reach out to me through as well, you can find me there. But I would say Instagram is probably the best way to find me and see what I do. And thank you for having me, ladies.
Of course. Okay, so thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Please come on back in half an hour. We're doing another conversation where we're going to be talking more about Kanaka in the diaspora and our experiences here on the continent. We'll be talking about the Maui fires a little bit more, but also more broader issues that we experience here on the continent, and how we find ways to stay grounded and connected to our community. So Want to thank you guys. Shout outs to Dana and Pauahi and Latoya. Dana and Latoya are at Dragon Con, covering the con there, and then Pauahi is recovering. So shout out so much aloha to her. Wishing you a speedy recovery. But yes, so come on back, 8:30, Kanaka Diaspora Perspectives, and then our next Rain Talks will be next month. It's September, so we'll hope to see you guys then. Take care, everybody. Malama pono. Ahui ho. See you later.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will.
If this the land of the free, it was a freedom then. When they annexed Hawaii and called it Cedar Lands, without any type of payment and no signing off. Called themselves the Republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the Native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language is banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand, yeah.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. The work of all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.
So if we put Hawaii into perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then of course versus Asia, they was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course. Cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was an actual kingdom. Clap back at the system.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. The work of all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.